The planet of Zorath was cold. The winds howled through jagged rock formations, and the sky was a perpetual gray that made even the brightest of days feel dull. It was a place where only the toughest of beings could survive, a harsh environment that bred hard, unrelenting creatures. On one of the desolate plains of Zorath, in the heart of a sprawling alien city, a remarkable event was unfolding. A group of Zorathians, humanoid aliens with reptilian features, stood in the center of a sterile white room, glaring at a small, wrinkled bundle lying on a stone platform. The baby was unlike anything any of them had ever seen, a strange hybrid, a mix of Zorathian and another species entirely. The child's skin was a mottled grayish-green, its eyes large, black, and devoid of emotion. Its limbs were too long and too thin, with a slight bend at the joints that made it appear almost malformed. The alien infants that had been born in their race for centuries were supposed to be strong and resilient. But this child, this one had none of those qualities. It looked frail, almost sickly. A mistake. A burden. Dispose of it. One of the council members grumbled, his deep voice filled with disdain. It's defective. It will only bring shame to the Zorathian name. Another Zorathian woman, clearly upset by the decision, stepped forward. It's not the child's fault, she argued. We cannot just cast it aside like an object. But the council was unyielding. The child's mixed heritage, its abnormal features, made it a pariah. To the Zorathians, it was a blemish that needed to be erased, a reminder of a failed experiment. The baby's existence had been a result of forbidden interspecies genetics, a blending of their species with humans from Earth. However, what no one in the room knew was that there was one person who had been watching from the shadows, unseen but very much aware of what was about to happen. A human man named Gabriel was no stranger to the harshness of space. He had traveled across the galaxy as a diplomat, a representative of humanity's peaceful intentions. He had seen the wonders of the universe, but he had also witnessed its darkest corners. But nothing had prepared him for the discovery of a child like this. When Gabriel had come to Zorath years ago, he had been fascinated by the alien culture. He had befriended many of the Zorathians, respected their way of life, and admired their strength. But the one thing he hadn't expected was to fall in love with a Zorathian woman named Sarynn. She was a beautiful, strong warrior, and their relationship had been both unexpected and forbidden. They had kept their bond hidden, for the Zorathians didn't believe in interspecies unions. But in time, Sarynn became pregnant. Gabriel had promised to protect the child, no matter what. When the child was born, it was clear that there were complications. The baby didn't look like a pure Zorathian. Its physical appearance was grotesque by Zorathian standards. It was weak, and its deformities were too obvious for the council to ignore. Gabriel had tried to fight for the child, to explain that it deserved a chance at life, but the Zorathians were ruthless. They had decided it was an abomination, and they planned to dispose of it. That was when Gabriel acted. He had been ready for this moment, prepared to do whatever it took to save the child he had come to love as his own. As the council turned away from the child, he stepped into the room. He held up his hand to stop the proceedings. "Stop," he commanded, his voice firm but tinged with emotion. "This child is mine." The room fell silent. The Zorathians stared at him in disbelief. There had been no human father, no human presence in this world, not until Gabriel's arrival. But this was something different. Gabriel's words carried weight, and for a moment, even the Zorathian leaders seemed uncertain. "I will take the child," Gabriel continued, his voice steady but filled with conviction. "No matter what it takes, this child will live, and I will raise it." A murmur rippled through the council. To most Zorathians, the idea of a human raising one of their own kind was laughable. But Gabriel wasn't asking for their approval. He was declaring that this child, regardless of its appearance, was his responsibility. One of the elder council members finally spoke. You would raise this defect? You would put your race's honor at risk for something so repulsive? Gabriel's eyes hardened. You're wrong. It's not the child's fault it was born this way. And I won't stand by while you condemn it for something it can't control. I may be human, but I understand what it means to protect those you love. This child is mine, and I will protect it. The tension in the room was palpable. The council members exchanged glances, clearly unsettled by Gabriel's words. But after a long silence, the leader of the council spoke again. Take the child, human, he said, his voice filled with reluctant acceptance. But know this, there will be consequences for your actions. The Zorathian people will not forget this. Gabriel nodded, his heart heavy with the weight of what he was about to do. He reached down, carefully picking up the small, frail child. Despite its deformities, despite its alien nature, Gabriel felt a deep sense of connection to the infant. It was his child, and he would care for it as he had promised. As he walked out of the room, the other Zorathians watched, their judgmental gazes following him. Some shook their heads. Others looked on with a mixture of disgust and disbelief. But Gabriel didn't care. He had made his choice, and it was a choice that would change his life forever. Back in Gabriel's small quarters, he carefully placed the child in a makeshift cradle. It wasn't much, but it was home. He sat beside the child, his heart swelling with a mixture of love and fear. He didn't know what the future held for them. He didn't know how the child would grow, whether it would face prejudice or hatred from the Zorathians. But one thing was certain, he would protect it with everything he had. Days turned into weeks, and Gabriel's life with the child was not easy. The baby's appearance was still a source of ridicule among the Zorathians, and even some humans who had seen the child questioned Gabriel's decision. But Gabriel didn't falter. He cared for the child with tenderness, teaching it to speak and understand both Zorathian and human languages. He taught it to survive in a world that rejected it, to stand tall even in the face of scorn. As the child grew, its strange features became more pronounced. Its long limbs and large, dark eyes made it a constant subject of curiosity and derision. But Gabriel saw beyond the deformities. He saw the strength that lay beneath the surface. The child, whom he named HFY, was incredibly intelligent. It quickly learned to navigate the complex world of Zorath, using its unique physical attributes to its advantage. One day, when HFY was old enough, the Zorathian council summoned Gabriel. They demanded that he bring the child before them. I've heard reports, the council leader said coldly, that the child you have raised is becoming a force to be reckoned with. This child is different. It has abilities that we did not expect. It has outperformed every Zorathian in combat training. Gabriel stood tall, his expression unwavering. I told you from the start that this child was special. I didn't raise it to be a weapon, but if that's how you see it, so be it. The council members were silent for a long moment before the leader spoke again. Perhaps we were wrong. This child, though an anomaly, may prove to be the key to a new future for both our species. You have proven us wrong, human. Gabriel's heart swelled with pride, not for himself, but for HFY, who had grown beyond the limitations the Zorathians had placed upon it. The child was no longer just a defect to be discarded. It had become a symbol of hope, a reminder that even the most broken of beings could rise above their circumstances. And in that moment, Gabriel knew that he had made the right choice. HFY, the child no one wanted, had become a beacon of possibility in a world that had once rejected it. As they left the council chamber together, Gabriel looked down at his child, his heart full. The future was uncertain, but as long as they had each other, he knew they would be ready to face whatever came their way.